right, people, if you've managed to stick with us this long, you're still in Cantor at Your Own Risk, episode number 40, where we are now into part 8 of our Nightmare on Elm Street franchise marathon. We are now discussing the offshoot that we almost didn't slip in, but we finally decided to. Freddy vs. Jason from 2003. Kevin, take it away.
Yeah, so Freddy vs. Jason, 2003, directed by Ronnie Yu, written by Damian Shannon and Mark Swift. This is the highest grossing one at $116 million. And the opening of the movie, like on my Blu-ray DVD, I honestly thought that it was a trailer for like the entire series, because I know they like came out with the series at that point. So I didn't even realize that I was watching the movie for some reason. I've really liked this one. This is definitely on a top 5 for me. I remember when I first saw it, I worked at the mall and at Spencer's in 2003 in Goodlettsville, Tennessee, and it seemed like it was just a big mall like merchandise cash grab of a movie. And when I did finally see it, I wasn't really that impressed with it. And I don't think I've seen it again since until like yesterday or the day before. The movie starts out, the long-awaited Freddy vs. Jason. It starts out where you're following Jason Voorhees, and it just seems like it's another Friday the 13th movie. And then we get Pamela Voorhees, who I actually thought the woman they got was so good that I actually thought it was the original woman from the first Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it's not Betsy.
It's not, but it was pretty, but it was, you know, it's been a while since I've seen that. Yeah,
she was really good, like a really good choice.
And then you realize that it turns into Freddy Krueger as the mom, and Freddy is manipulating Jason into killing. Well, I guess he manipulates him into going back to Springwood from Camp Crystal Lake. Kent, do you know where Camp Crystal Lake is supposed to be?
I believe it's
so that's a little that road trip alone is a movie unto itself, I'm sure. So yes, we're back at 1428 Elm Street, the original house from the first film and many other. And it's a Friday the 13th movie at the house from Elm Street. It's and starts off with the first kill is the beer in hand after sex. Classic Friday the 13th. And it kind of, in a way, reminds me of Freddy's Revenge, except instead of Jesse, it's Jason that Freddy kind of like possesses. And it's pretty cool. I really like this a lot. I liked all of the Jason killings. I guess the one thing in retrospect, there is a lot of deaths in this, but Freddy doesn't really do a lot of them. Or there's a dream sequence. But there are gags in this, which I appreciate, even though there is a lot more CGI use. But the nose job magazine dream sequence with Kelly Rowland of Destiny's Child, and of course the Great High School Kegger Massacre. What did you guys think of this?
Go ahead, Kent.
Well, I just sent you guys an image. It is my oldest movie ticket to date that I have kept, because I was there on August 15th, 2003 opening night, and it was a Friday night, and I was doing the Malarkey show at the time, and I believe we were on I think we were on at 8:30 or 9. I think it was 9. So, you go for like the 7 o'clock showing or whatever. Whatever it was, we were going to be just barely there on time from the Johnstown Movieplex to where the old Time Warner, you guys kind of may remember where it was.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. So, yeah, me, Russ, I think it was me, Russ, Craig, and Ron. We all went opening night. There was these idiot fucking kids in front of us that were pissing me off. Like I wanted to fight them, but I was in too good of a mood at that point. They weren't going to bring me down, and it was one of the best theatrical experiences because everybody was kind of like happy, and sometimes you get a good group of moviegoers with a good movie, and you guys know how it goes. Was it everything that I wanted it to be or hyped up in my mind to be? Well, no, but in all fairness, this movie had been rumored for a fucking decade. Like they were trying to do this back in the 80s when Paramount still had the Friday the 13th franchise, but they wanted the U.S. distribution and give New Line the international, and New Line's like, no, fuck you guys, we have the star of the movie, which I would agree that New Line was right to, I think Freddy's more marketable, but I could be wrong. Anyway, it was a magical time. There was plenty of jokes. Maybe a couple did not age so well. I was just reading that Kelly Rowland, gets picked on by, her friends for having done the movie role, and she's like, I got to, do a movie with Freddy Krueger, and I had a blast, and I got paid to do it. You guys can insult me all you want, whatever. And I don't understand why anybody would really insult her. She looked like she had a really fun time making the movie. It looked like a really fun experience overall. The only person that didn't have a great experience, from what I could tell, was Katharine Isabelle, because she'd signed a no nudity thing on her contract, and Ronnie Yu kept trying his best to make sure she would do nudity, and eventually they settled on a body double for the shower scene. But all in all, I just, this was the last thing I was watching right before we started this podcast, fucking days ago, it seems. I don't know. I still end it happy. I don't know. I still want to see another one. They obviously left it open if they really want to, with the way that it ended. So, I don't know. At this point in the game, I feel like if anybody expected something super serious, they were going to be dead wrong in what they wanted. But if you were just going to sit back, relax, and just enjoy it, I don't know. This was probably one of the funnest movies in either franchise, quite frankly. I have one nitpick. I probably have multiple ones, but here's my one nitpick that I'll address to you guys. They seem to change how Jason was towards water. And I don't know if you guys how familiar you are with the Friday the 13th franchise, but I think it's part 4, part 7, part 8. Jason has no problem being in the water and dragging people under. So
the one that I remember seeing was the one where at the end he's getting the fucking boat engine run over against his face as he's trying to get the people in the boat.
Yeah. I didn't really think it was needed to add this thing where he had this weird water phobia thing. I don't know. That was probably the one thing I didn't care so much for, just because previous entries.
Well, maybe at this point, because he was buried underwater, he breaks the chains. Was that number 8?
So the one where he has the chain and the boulder. Tommy Jarvis did that in part 6. Part 7 was the telekinesis girl that rose Jason up. And And then part 8, he is like electrocuted back to life by the couple that's on the boat. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Thankfully,
All right.
like I just watched that 2 weeks ago, so thankfully I'm a little bit on point for once.
To go into my opinions of this, after rewatching the whole thing, this is my fucking number 1 in the series. I love this movie. I love the soundtrack too. I know you were going on about number 4, but this one's soundtrack is much more up my alley, according to stuff I listen to. B, the writing held up better than I expected. This seems to me to be more like a Wes Craven type movie post Scream than a lot of the earlier Wes Craven movies that we watched. In regards to the characters, I like the fact that they hook back into stuff that we haven't seen in the franchise in a while, including Weston Hills and Hypnosil. Again, like my biggest complaint would be probably like Kevin said, there's a shit ton of deaths, but I think all of them are caused by Jason.
He kills Jason Ritter's friend.
Does Freddy even get a single kill in this movie?
Yeah, the guy who has the brother, yeah. And even that you don't see,
When he
because it's
burns
just
his
like you see the claw marks on his face, like at the very end of it.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of a lame kill, actually.
But again, it had a decent cast too. I mean, not great, but I have to look at getting to a supporting character. Like the fat dude in the Cornfield Massacre. Yeah, for a bad performance. All of the main people were relatively well done. Even the deputy, who I've seen suck in a lot of the shit that he's done.
Ritter?
He's like the dad on
Not Ritter.
Riverdale. Married to Mad Dynamic. Yeah, you probably like that. But
is he? I haven't seen it.
Is his name Lachlan Monroe?
Yeah. I've seen him do good stuff. I've seen him do fucking shit too. So, but yeah, he was pretty good in this. The plotting made sense. If we're gonna look at horror collaborations, compare the storyline in this to the storyline in Aliens versus Predator, or even better, Aliens versus Predator Requiem.
Oh.
And they actually came up with a plot that worked and made sense and was decent. The only thing that I liked better than this was I remember reading a fan fiction back in the day, and I tried to find it. I couldn't find the specific one. I've seen a lot of others similar to it that was basically written as a sequel to this, where in order to get Jason the hell out of here, now that Jason's just carrying Freddy's disembodied, bowled head around with him, Freddy invades Michael's nightmares in the asylum and gets him to come to Springwood to fight Jason. And Will and Laurie end up hooking up with Dr. Loomis in order to try to hunt down the three of them. It was actually really well written, too. But the cool thing in that universe that they were talking about in this fan fiction was they were kind of setting up an idea Behind the Mask did, that this is a world where all of those horror killers are real, and they talk about the Reaper being down in northern Florida, and Pumpkinhead being in the Appalachian Mountains and kind of shit. So I mean that was cool. But anyways, go ahead, Kent.
Just a quick question. Chris, this is probably more for you since you are an avid reader. Did you ever read any of the scripts that came out prior to this? Like the leaked attempts at scripts?
I never did. I mean, by the point, this was the first one, actually the only one I saw in the theater. And at this point, I had only seen 1, 3, 4, 5, I think, complete.
Okay.
It wasn't until this came out while I was in the Army. And I had a buddy, Steve, and we used to go and we were both single. We didn't have a lot of shit to do, so we would go to the movies all the time. So, we started, we saw a lot of action movies and a lot of dramas, but, we would go to see horror together too. And that was when I really started going to see a lot of horror in the theater.
I'll say that back in college, have to go to the writing lab. I don't know how many days because you were limited to how many pages you could print. But I went there every day in college to print up 2 of the scripts that were, proposed. And one of them had like this whole interesting introduction playing off of the ending of Jason Goes to Hell, because in Jason Goes to Hell you see Freddy's glove rise up from the ground and drag the mask down. And basically it starts off in hell, and it actually wasn't a bad script, but I don't think it would have ever looked good in visual format. It was like a good read, but sometimes good read does not translate well to on screen.
Oh yeah.
I think that was the case, and quite frankly, when crisscrossing 2 franchises, all things considered, this was a really, really, really well thought out way of bringing these 2 characters together. And I mean, I know a lot of people want to see this versus any number of things. Is there any potential out there that's any 2 characters that could be bigger than Freddy and Jason at this point? I don't think there is.
No, I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean,
who is there? There's even more recent.
I mean, like I said with that fanfic, I think that the next person that you add is probably the 3rd biggest, and that's Michael Myers.
Ash has been discussed a lot, and he would be interesting, I think. But yeah, Michael's the next in line, and if you could throw Michael and Ash somehow in there...
I mean, see, for all we want to talk about Ash, he's not superhuman.
Right, and that's why you can't include Ghostface in this conversation, because what the fuck's Ghostface going to do?
So he's going to get the shit kicked out of him by Jason and Michael.
Yeah, you would think that.
And he's pretty fucking stupid, so he's not going to outthink Freddy.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you could have possibly done a Chucky versus Leprechaun back in the day when they were more popular, but now I think it would fall flat on its face. Especially if you can't bring back Warwick Davis, who I don't think is going to come back to reprise that role.
I mean, he's looking old now. I mean, he is old, but he's looking it.
Well, I mean, Leprechaun, he got all of that shit on his face. I mean, you can get a stunt person.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't mind. I know some fans really didn't like that they didn't bring back Kane Hodder, but Ken Kirzinger, who was a stunt double, and also he was a chef in Jason Takes Manhattan. He was very good as Jason, because if you go through the first 6 Friday the 13th, and each time there's a different Jason. Well, part 1 obviously isn't the same, but my point is that Kane Hodder really was a definitive Jason, but Ken did a very good job as Jason, I thought.
In the later ones, did Jason have the blue skin like he did in this?
No. Jason had a lot of weird shit going on. So, he might have had some bluish skin in Jason Goes to Hell. I don't think he had... I don't even know what the fuck you would call it in Jason X, because he was a fucking cyborg Jason.
Silver skin.
So... Yeah. There was a lot of good funny things too. I like when you can do a horror and add a little bit of comedy without it taking away from anything. You know what I mean? So Freddy's Dead, they just threw humor just for the sake of it and didn't really add anything. Whereas, in say part 3 or 4, Jason or Freddy would have like a quip or two that was kind of funny, and you'd be like, all right, that works. I thought that most of the stuff worked well here. Also, did you guys know that there's one scene where WWE legend Rey Mysterio Jr. plays Freddy Krueger?
I'm assuming it's towards the end when he's jumping around doing like the elbow drops and shit.
I would have thought that too, but apparently it's he's going after Gib during the party scene. He jumps. There's like a scene where he jumps down to go after Gib, and that apparently is Rey Mysterio.
I saw he was in the cast, but I never did any more research into that. But that makes sense. I thought he was going to be like a cameo, like they did with 6.
Yeah, I thought it'd be a cameo too. And the more I read about it, I was like, oh shit, he actually got to play the role for. I don't even know how many seconds or anything, but yeah, it's just a kind of neat little footnote, I think. I don't even mind that Freddy didn't get shit for kills, because a lot of Jason's kills were pretty awesome, I thought.
Yeah, I think they did Jason well too. I liked how he got his stinger every time he came on too.
I loved. They're in the van and they're debating whether to give him CPR, and Linderman's like, "I have asthma. I don't have the lung strength," and Kia's like, "Well, I don't want to do it," and Will's like, "He doesn't have the lung strength. You got to do it." That sort of shit kind of worked for me.
I actually thought that was gross too. I was actually kind of grossed out. And she didn't end up actually doing the CPR, but I remember being like, wow, this is actually gross.
I mean, think about it.
In a good way.
So she ended up trying to do it, and then she's dead, 20 minutes later, if that? So.
I mean, yeah, she missed a chance for her last kiss.
Yeah.
She was on.
Did we ever answer where Crystal Lake was?
Jersey?
Yeah,
I'm
New
pretty
Jersey.
sure it's Jersey.
Yep.
So.
I mean, randomly. Yeah, I mean, I really, really enjoyed this movie. This was the Freddy that I remember everybody talking about, too, from when I was growing up. People talking about him being funny and scary at the same time. I think they did right by Jason. I don't think he got shafted. Again, the whole fire and water thing was kind of stupid, but
yeah. How creepy was it? When all the kids sat up and they were had their eyes covered. That one scene was actually genuinely
in the
good.
Hospital, yeah.
It didn't scare me, but it was spooky enough that I was like, oh, really was impressed by that, because. I mean, shit, how often do we get a really good spooky scene anymore? Especially in a slasher, you don't get it.
Yeah, not often.
I was very pleased with that.
Yeah, I think the water versus fire thing, I think it was more if they didn't have some sort of kryptonite for Jason, it would just be game on the entire time. I mean...
have fun, Freddy.
So I kind of get it. I mean, it is a little ridiculous when they're like, "Oh, he's afraid of water," but water did kill him, and fire killed Freddy. So it definitely that movie's so great that it could. I mean, of all the passes I give all the other ones, that one's a lot easier to give.
Oh yeah, you can easily overlook that and not be upset about. Yeah,
and the Freddy glove through the chest was pretty awesome.
Yes.
It's surprising.
I mean, I love the whole stab the fuck out of the guy in the bed and then fold him up.
Well, you saw
So they weren't originally going to do that, by the way. They had to fight to get that scene, and then when they did the test, that scene got the biggest applause and buzz from the
He's
test
still holding his beer. It's so great.
Yeah.
And then the other one I like a lot too is when the other kid wakes up from his dream and he's like, "Right, Dad." And he looks over and he pushes his dad's shoulder and the head falls off and then he turns and Jason's right there.
Oh yeah, Blake.
Yeah.
I liked when fucking Lori wakes up and like they're out down in the basement and like all of them approach her like they're all turning on her. It was a pretty
that was a
well-done
great scene. It had like a really good twist, and like the turn of it was pretty good. Because then I don't ever seen Jason Ritter like maniacal.
Right. It just kind of I was like, are they really going to do this, or is this a? I really didn't know. Like they filmed it quite nicely. So.
Did I ever tell you that my stepdad is John Ritter's cousin? I mean, I don't know if it's ever come up in one of our podcasts, considering that we normally talk about horror movies, but...
Gosh, I don't know if that's ever been brought up, because the only time we would have brought up John Ritter, I feel, would have been Stephen King's It, or in...
Bride of Chucky?
One of the Child's Play. Bride, right?
Yeah, Bride of Chucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think we've talked about Bride of Chucky on here, but we did talk It, so yeah, I probably did. But I guess that would technically make his son my stepdad's cousin as well. So...
Yes. That
second cousin?
Interesting. Right? Yeah.
And, and actually the same director, Ronnie Yu, directed Bride of Chucky, which led him to this. I don't know.
And Bride of Chucky really saved that series, too.
Yeah.
Like, because Child's Play 3 fucking bombed horribly. But that's a podcast for another day. But yeah, that... Ugh.
All right. I think we can unanimously agree that this one was a success.
Yeah.
It was actually a pleasure to rewatch.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yep.
All right, guys. We might have saved the worst for last. I think that's going to be up for interpretation, but we will be coming back with the A Nightmare on Elm Street remake from 2010 in just a second.